Hello and welcome. Jack Lemmon's performance in the nuclear thriller The China Syndrome won him worldwide acclaim, including an Oscar nomination and Best Actor wins at the Cannes Film Festival and Britain's BAFTA Awards. And in an extraordinary twist to the line Art Imitates Life, 12 days after it was released in March 1979, the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident occurred in Pennsylvania. The controversial film co-starred Michael Douglas and Jane Fonda, who was not originally in the cast, but who was also nominated for an Oscar. Now, Jack was one of Hollywood's most versatile stars across a diverse range of dramas and comedies, and was an 8-time Oscar nominee, including 2 wins. Jack starred in over 60 movies, including Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, Irma La Douce, The Odd Couple, Save the Tiger, and Grumpy Old Men. Now, shortly after China Syndrome was released, he told me about the political tension around the film, Columbia Studios' reactions, and the plot rewrite that belatedly got Jane Fonda into the movie.
And I have been very fortunate, but in my opinion only, I really do feel it's one of the best films that I have ever been in and may ever be in. It's a beautifully made film and a very important film.
Yes, I agree entirely with you. What about problems getting the money together to make the film? Were there any?
There were problems. Not because someone didn't respect the script. You wouldn't have to be a genius to recognize that it was an awfully good project. But the danger, and I can't blame studios, the danger was, would it have an appeal to the public? Is it too controversial? Do people really want to see this kind of film, etc.? It's the sort of thing I ran into with Save the Tiger.
Yes.
And proved to be right, thank heaven. And earlier than that, with Days of Wine and Roses, they all took well over a year of my life before we could even start shooting, before we could get a deal. Even. And that sort of gave me sustenance while this was going on. I kept hanging on by my toenails and saying, well, remember what happened with Wine and Roses, remember what happened with Tiger, so hang in there. You know.
Right. Was there ever any suggestion of, not political interference, but political suggestions that it may not be a wise film to make?
Oh, yes. A lot of people thought we were crazy. But I must say that at no time, once we were going ahead with it, did anybody try to say, well, look, you better calm it down, or you better change the script a little here and there, or you better do this. Columbia, I must say, never exerted any influence on us to hold back about anything. Once they had made the commitment, they let us go. And I give them all points for that. They were quite wonderful. And once it was done, we still didn't know what would happen, but they got behind it 100%, I must say. They backed it beautifully. I've never been in a film that I felt had more dedicated people, not only in front and behind the camera, but also in the studio. And once we had the final print, they did everything and I thought they sold it very well, and on a very mature level. They didn't hold back. And they really worked hard, and I was delighted by that. And fortunately, it turned out beautifully.
Did you work with Michael and Jane in developing any particular elements of the script at all?
No, not really. When Jane entered the picture, which was after me, by entered the picture, I mean when she became part of the project, her part originally was written as a man.
Oh, really?
And she had a commitment at Columbia Pictures to do another film, and that, for various reasons, could not be done because the property was in litigation, etc. So somebody, it was not me, possibly Michael, I guess, but somebody said, hey, wait a minute. What if Jane were interested in doing this film? And liked that part, and it was just purely rewritten to be a woman. Now, normally you would think, oh, dear old Hollywood strikes again, you know. In order to get Jane Fonda, they're going to put her in a part that isn't right, or this. Actually, it's a much better idea than the original one, as good as the script was.
I agree with you, yes.
But she is, and Mike Gray, it did the work on her part of the story in that sense. And I was aware of what was going on, but I really just stayed away. My part, in other words, as you know, there's sort of like two sides of the story in a way that come together eventually.
Yes.
The whole side of the story of Jane and her job as a TV reporter and news lady, it was all developed by them. My part of the story stayed as it was, in other words, except for the scenes where we finally get together.
Right. Was there any, because of Jane's political awareness, was there anything that she wanted to make clear in the script?
No, I don't think so. I think that Jane is much too intelligent for that. I think she was concerned, as I was, and as everybody else connected with it, that we tell a very good story. Certainly the points are there, and the points that we make about possible dangers in our quest to satisfy the needs for energy, it's easily possible to do very dangerous things, and that's exactly what happened, in the proliferation of nuclear reactors, and it's exactly what happened, as you know, at Three Rivers in Harrisburg.
Yes.
It's really uncanny that almost every step of that horrendous accident is exactly what we did in the film, and the film was done before it ever happened, and it's one of those rare instances where life imitates art, as opposed to art imitating life. It was hardly a feather in our cap. We were all petrified like the rest of the world. But we were only concerned in being honest about it as best we could. We never did anything that we felt wasn't viable or possible. We had scientists working with us at all times about every step of it, and there's nothing in the film that actually did not happen eventually.
Yes.
And almost as bad. No, our real concern was to do the movie as legitimately and as honestly and as best as we could, not just to stand on a soapbox or make a statement or anything. That's disaster. Jane would be the first to agree with me.
There were two interesting points I thought about the film. One simply an interesting point, and the other, from my point of view, a criticism. Let's take the first one, and that is you chose to paint, or the screenwriters chose to paint a picture of well, not necessarily corruption, but eventually corruption in failing to provide 100% materials and 100% work. Was there any reaction to that when the film came out?
No, because it's been done. It has been done, and it has been uncovered. There has been far more than just one case of that happening, and even in other industries. For instance, with all of the millions and multi-millions of dollars that went into the Alaska pipeline, it was discovered because almost immediately oil started leaking all over the tundra of Alaska, and they found case after case after case of faulty welding and of falsified reports and x-rays of the wells, in which they would take an x-ray of one weld and then just duplicate it about 6 times in a row and say, these are the next 6 welds.
What about, though, in nuclear stations?
I beg your pardon?
What about in nuclear power stations, though?
It's happened in nuclear stations, too. Definitely.
And that's been publicly documented, has it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's very interesting.
It's not just that. That's minor compared to some of the things they have found. But that happens in every business, and it's going to happen. There is always going to be somebody that's cutting a corner. And there are so many industries involved, not just the people running the station. They didn't even know. But they weren't that upset when they found out. I'm not talking about the people running the reactors in our film. They didn't know. They didn't deliberately go ahead. It's just that they were not concerned enough. They were convinced. They weren't evil men in the sense that they knew there was some drastically terrible thing wrong with the plant and tried to keep it open anyhow. That's just suicide. They were convinced that it would be all right.
Right.
They would just not listen because it was not as important as the money involved.
Right.
That's the bottom line. In other words, it's the priorities and the sense of values. What is really important?
Right. The point that I was going to make about it was my personal criticism. I thought it was an excellent film up until where the SWAT squad came in, burst in and started firing machine guns everywhere. I thought that really just took it over the top and made it almost like a Kojak sequence.
A few people have felt that. I don't agree, but I certainly wouldn't say, oh, you're wrong. It isn't that, because I think that, in any film, you're offering something that is up to individual interpretation and like or dislike and acceptance or non-acceptance. You have to remember one thing there. They honestly did think I was a madman.
Yes.
And I had in my control the most powerful weapon on earth.
Yes.
They honestly did think I was crazy.
Yes.
That's the important thing. Now, possibly to the handful of people that did feel that suddenly became unrealistic, for a moment, as you did, that it was not made clear enough. But that certainly was the intent. Fortunately, it does work for most people. They honestly did think I was a madman. They thought I had absolutely blown my cork.
Right.
In other words, I had commandeered the plane, and I was going to kill everybody in the plane. As happens so often, unfortunately.
How happy were you with your performance? Can I just... How happy were you with your performance? I know it won the Best Actor there, and
I tell you, it's very, very tough to judge yourself. I can put it best this way: I'm terribly pleased by the reaction to the performance. Up until the reaction, I think it's terribly difficult. There are certain things you can do now and then that are failures, but they're your pets. It happens really, I guess, more often with directors than actors. I was more or less pleased when I first saw the film, before it had been released, with what I had done. But I had no idea whether, it would go down with the public or whether the film would. All I knew was that I felt it was one of the most worthwhile things that I had ever done in any medium in my life, and I still do feel that. The thrill of it all was the fact that enough other people agreed. That it was accepted on such a high level, thank heaven. But it's awfully tough, really, John, to judge yourself. Also, I guess I'm a little hesitant to sound a little self-serving.
Yes, yeah.
It is difficult, really, to judge yourself.
Yeah, you're very, very strongly tipped for an Academy nomination, and a good, strong tip to win it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm thrilled. I do feel this. I think that there is no question the film is going to be nominated for a number of Academy Awards, I think, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it. I really am. I must say, ultimately, and especially in the medium of cinema, my hat goes off not just to myself if the performance works and is nominated, but also to the director, because more than any medium, the stage, TV, anything, you are really more in the hands of your director. Because once the performance is finished, of course, then comes the editing, which is vital, and his different shadings, but so much else goes on, that's now out of the hands of the actor. And this man is really one of the handful of top writer-directors, Jim Bridges, I think, in the world.
Right.
Finally coming into his own.
Right. What about your next project? Have you completed a film since then?
No, I haven't. What I did is, the moment I finished shooting it, which was, a year and a half ago now, I guess, I went back to Broadway and did a play called Tribute, and I did it all last year.
Right.
In Boston, Toronto, but mainly on Broadway.
Right.
And it was a hit, thank heaven. Just a moment, but I'm still on this one. Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The operator just cut in. And I did it again this summer here in Los Angeles, and just closed last week to refresh it. And I'm going to do the film of that around the first of the year.
Oh, are you really? Oh, that's great.
Jack was one of Hollywood's most awarded actors, including winning the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor as Ensign Pulver in 1955's Mr. Roberts, and the Best Actor Oscar for Save the Tiger in 1973. He died in 2001 at the age of 76.